Hi there, and welcome to Let's Slow Down, a podcast for all of you who feel tired and stressed from this overwhelming world. Here we'll have fun, inspiring conversations about living life on our own terms and explore ways to ease the pace of our modern world, because life really is good when you're relaxed enough to be present for it. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Stolting, and I welcome you to this space where I hope to inspire you to slow down, because life is too short to let it go by in a blur. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the show. Today's guest is Caroline Thor. Caroline is a certified Konmari Consultant and host of the podcast, Living Clutter-Free Forever. Decluttering has been a huge journey of mine and a big focus on this podcast. So excited to talk to you today, Caroline. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Why don't we start by you telling the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name's Caroline. I am, as you said, a Konmari consultant and professional organizer. I actually live in Germany and have done for the past 18 years, but I'm originally from the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent. And originally I trained as a classroom music teacher in the UK, and that's what I did for 12 years before moving to Germany. And when I moved to Germany, I didn't speak a word of German and needed somewhere where I could have a job. And that was at a local international school where I could speak English, which was just a blessing. And then I went on to marry the guy that had brought me to Germany. And we went on to have 3 children. And I decided to start classes for expat families in English with music, just having fun with their kids. And that's basically where I was at until a couple of years ago. The KonMari method entered my life 9 years ago when, as a mum of 3 young children, I just felt overwhelmed. I felt stressed. I felt meeting myself coming around the next corner. And I one day received a copy of Good Housekeeping magazine from the UK, and in there was an article about this new book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And I read the article and thought, oh, that sounds interesting. Ordered it on some online resource, which arrived the next day. And the rest is basically history. I set about applying the KonMari method in our home. And it took me a year because I was doing it on my own and I was trying to fit it in around the kids and the family. But eventually I got there. And as I went through, I could just feel this calm coming over me. I knew where everything was. Everything had a place to go back to. I had time again in my day. I wasn't fighting fires all the time. The name of your podcast says, everything was just able to slow down. And it was just wonderful. So the last 9 years, I have been applying the method in our home consistently. And I had this bit of a aha moment during COVID that I wanted to help other women who had felt like I had 9 years ago to realize that isn't how life needs to be. And so I did the online training as a KonMari consultant, and that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years.
That's a great story. I've had such a similar journey. I used to be a classroom music teacher as well. And I did that for 11 years. Yeah. So I did that here in the States, and I taught elementary and middle school band. So lots of instruments, lots of noise, lots of kids. But it's so interesting that we fell into similar paths along our journey.
Very much.
And then I went on to also have the 3 children and feel very overwhelmed with all of it. So I can really relate to everything that you just said. And I think it's an inspiration. What inspired you to go out and start sharing this and become a consultant?
I think I just heard so many times from people who I met, even friends, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't have any time. I feel really stressed. Or I was watching them being quite short with their kids and how they were talking to them. And you could see it was because things in the home were making life more difficult than it needed to be. And I just really feel so passionately that this method can enable people to find a calmer, slower pace of life where you are actually living your ideal lifestyle. And the crux of the KonMari method is that at the very, very start, before you do anything, you should focus in on visualizing your ideal lifestyle. And that isn't, unfortunately, picking yourself up and dropping yourself on some treasure island somewhere away from the family and with sea and sand. That isn't how life works. But how can the life that you have become better for you? What would it need to be like for you to feel calm, for you to feel in control and not overwhelmed? So we do this visualizing, and it may be as simple as I would like to be able to leave the house in the morning without it turning into a battle with the kids where everyone's trying to find their stuff and you can't find your car keys and your mobile phone, and it just feels overwhelming and stressy. Imagine just everyone getting their stuff and calmly walking out of the door. Or even better, you come home at the end of the day and open the front door, and the entranceway isn't full of school bags and coats that have been left on the floor, and you've got to climb over a pile of shoes, and you just immediately walk in and you're just like, oh, I've got to set to and clear this up before I can do anything, or I have to set to and clear the kitchen before I can start to cook dinner, or I have to move everything off the sofa before I can sit down to watch anything on Netflix. It's just, we're permanently doing extra things which are actually unnecessary. And that was sort of my motivation for wanting to become a KonMari consultant.
I can relate to every single word of that. It's amazing how much our environment and especially our home, as that's the place where we spend the most time, most of us, it can just, that outside world can affect our inside world so much. I think more than a lot of us realize. And I'm thinking back to all the years that I was struggling, especially when the kids were younger with all this stuff. Actually, even before the kids, when it was just me and my husband, we lived in a small little condo. Our attic was stuffed. Like, what did we have? What was all this stuff? It was just the two of us, and looking back, this was a collective process that was years and years in the making. And I would try to organize things, but like all the bins and everything else. And the piece that I was missing was that there's too much. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, organization is important, but if there's too much stuff, you can organize forever and there's still going to be too much stuff. So it's that initial piece of decluttering that I think is overlooked often. And I think that when you really get down to it and start the decluttering process, that's when you start to feel a true change in, okay, I can breathe a little bit easier. I can find things. I know what I need. Just, we need less. We need less of everything.
Yeah.
Along those lines, that's when it gets a little easier to then visualize that life. Like, okay, what do I want? How do I want to feel? Because I feel like it just can get so overwhelming. All of it can get so overwhelming that you can't even picture what that life looks like and what that life feels like because you're just in a constant state of overwhelm.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And the analogy I always use is we wouldn't go off on holiday without first having a destination in mind. We wouldn't rock up at the airport and go, okay, let's just grab a plane. Let's see where we're going. I mean, we just wouldn't do it.
Right.
And trying to organize your home without having a destination in mind, what is it you're trying to achieve? If all we're doing is organizing every room one after another, we're fighting fires because everyone's going to bring the stuff back into that space again. And this is where the KonMari method is different because we organize by category. We declutter by category first. So we start with clothes, then we move on to books, papers, etc. And because you're doing every single category and you're really looking around the whole home and going, okay, where are the books? And bringing all the books together, you can really see what you've got. It makes you very clear what you want to keep. And the premise of the KonMari method is you're focusing on what you want to keep, not what you want to get rid of. That's irrelevant. Once you've decided what you love, what serves you, as Marie Kondo says, what sparks joy for you, and you decide on that, then it's very clear to you what you can now let go with gratitude. And it's this letting go with gratitude that's really important. Okay, I bought this or I was given this at some point. It served us. thank you, let's donate it on. And this is the other thing people struggle with. What am I going to do with all this stuff I'm getting rid of? And that becomes scary for people. And again, it's having this destination that you've really thought about. Okay, do I know where I'm going to take things once I've decided to let them go, and have that ready in advance, like know where the drop-offs are for charity or where you can potentially sell things, so that as soon as you've made these decisions, you can move the stuff on to its new home, because it might not spark joy for you anymore, but it certainly will for somebody else. Someone's going to be super grateful for that dress or that picture or that tea service or whatever it is that you decide to let go. So that's sort of the difference, I think, that we're going by category, not by room. And as you say, how do we want to feel and what do we want to have time to do? Imagine if we had time to actually do some yoga at home, even if it's for 10 minutes. Imagine if the floor was clear and you didn't have to clear it before you wanted to get your yoga mat out, so that you actually weren't put off doing yoga because it's going to be too much hassle. These are the sort of things I get clients to visualize. Do they want to be able to paint? Do they want a cozy corner to sit and read in? Do they want to just be able to get out into the garden and potter around? Or is it quite simply, I just want to be able to go and meet up with a friend for a coffee and not be sitting there thinking, oh, I need to clear the living room when I get home. And that's basically what it boils down to.
Just a feeling of ease, living
Mm,
with more ease and having so much less stress, especially as women. We have our busy minds and we keep so much in the back of our head. Like we've always got those lists going. And like you said, if you can just go and do the thing and not have all these other little chores and stressful tasks kind of waiting for you, you enjoy everything more.
absolutely. I used to dread having visitors come, and we have, because I live abroad, if visitors come to us, they come for at least a week and stay. And it used to take me nearly that long to prepare, like to tidy up, to open the drawers, force everything in, close it, and hope no one was going to open anything while they were staying with us. This is pre-Konmari. And then once that was done, then I could set to and clean. So the whole thing just took forever. And now it's literally a case of set the robot vacuum off and we're done. I don't have to tidy at all anymore. And it's not because I am continually tidying. I am not. It's like, no. And my house is not perfect all of the time. I have 3 children. They bring their stuff home. They bring their friends back with them. There's often things that are brought out and they leave them lying around. But the difference now is every single person in our home knows where everything goes back to. And everything has a place to go back to. So if I say before dinner, which I do each evening, can everyone just have a look around and grab your stuff and take it back to where it should be? In less than 15 minutes, we completely reset, completely, because we do it every day. We sort of built it into our routine. And the kids have been doing this since they were little. They don't know any different. For them, it's normal that they help tidy up each day. And their rooms get untidy, and that's fine. It's their space, but they can easily reset it and very quickly if we need to get in and clean, or if they've got a friend coming for a sleepover. So things like that are just so, so much easier. And one thing in terms of how we feel, I don't think we are really aware of how our homes impact how we feel, as you said before. And it's almost embarrassing for me to say this, but my middle child, after I'd completed the whole KonMari method in our home, she must have been about 5 at the time. One day she said to me, "Why are you a nicer mummy now?"
Oh,
And and I was just like, "Oh, okay. That's hard to hear. On the other hand, it's good to hear."
right.
But it was basically because I had time and I didn't feel overwhelmed and stressed, and I wasn't snapping
Yes.
at them all the time and nagging them, and for her, that meant I was a nicer mummy. And luckily, that's how it stayed ever since then.
And didn't it make everything worth it? Just for that one realization from a
Absolutely.
little
Yeah.
girl. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
I was thinking back that as you were talking, you should also be teaching parenting classes, because the fact that you got all 3 of yours on board and you've trained them is a tremendous feat in itself. I love that you give your kids their room as their space. They don't necessarily have to live the same way the entire home lives, because I've struggled with that a bit. I am very much like you. I want things put away. The clutter stresses me out. I definitely get stressed out by stuff all over the countertops, and it's harder to do anything. And we've come a long way, and I've noticed a lot of the benefits that you've been talking about. If we know someone's coming over, it used to be a stressful thing. And we have 2 dogs. So if we don't stay on top of the vacuuming and cleaning up, I don't want people to walk in and get dog hair all over them or feel like it smells like dogs or anything like that. And, we have to stay on top of it. And having less clutter everywhere makes it so much easier to do that. And the whole process of having people over, which I want to do, I want to connect with people and have a nice night with friends and have family over. It's way less stressful when you feel like your house is company ready and not magazine ready, like real life company ready, right? So anyway, my kids, one in particular, she has a lot of stuff and she's very creative. I don't want to squash any of that. So I've kind of given her her room within reason. Sometimes we got to go in and clean it up a little bit, but within reason, that's her place to do as she wishes with. So can you give those of us with kids a few more tips about those challenges and how this comes up and how to be the nicer mommy?
Yeah, absolutely. There are 3 core things, I think. One is if we walk into our kid's bedroom and we feel overwhelmed by it, how are they feeling? And very often they're feeling so overwhelmed that when you say, can you tidy your room now? It's got too bad. It needs tidying up. They don't know where to start either. And they don't have the life skills that you do. So the first thing is just try and step into their shoes a little bit. The second thing is by allowing them to have too much stuff, you're making life more difficult for them. So I am a great advocate, especially with younger kids, of having a toy rotation going on so that they don't have access to everything all the time. Because if they start to get stuff out, which they will, because they should be playing with it. Of course, they need to get out their cars or their Barbies or their train sets or whatever it is that they want to play with, or their tea service. The more that's there, they'll just keep getting stuff out. And they don't necessarily then play with it because they're getting it out because they're interested in looking, and then they're distracted by the next shiny object and off they go to that. Whereas if they have less, they will actually play more consistently with it and better, which gives you a bit more peace and quiet because they are actually playing. And it means it's quicker and easier for them to tidy up, especially if you make tidying up easy. Have a bin that all Lego goes in. Let's not make life hard by saying it has to be sorted away by color. I mean, there's not many adults that would want to do that either. And yes, on certain programs that we see on Netflix and stuff, it looks beautiful, all this rainbow sorted stuff. But on a day-to-day basis, there are very few kids who are going to actually set to and tidy up in that way. So I always say, go for the easiest solution. And if that means all Lego gets thrown in one bin, all Playmobil gets thrown in another bin, all dolls get thrown in another bin, then that's enough. At least it's tidied up and put away. The kids will know where the stuff is, but at least it means that it's off the floor, it's back where it should be, and get them into a routine of doing it every day. And that's when I come to my third point. We are not born, many of us, with an innate skill of how to tidy up. It's something we need to learn. Now, my parents used to say to me, can tidy your room? And I don't remember them ever actually showing me how to do that. So my solution was to get plastic bags from the supermarket, throw everything in there and hide them under my bed. And my room looked tidy. And my parents would come up and go, oh, well done, your room's tidy. But I knew where nothing was. And I hadn't learned how to tidy up. And I carried that forward into my adult life. I am naturally, which people think is hilarious for a professional organizer, I'm actually naturally very disorganized. I have to really be strict with myself in order to keep on top of it. And that's where the KonMari method has really been my lifesaver, because it's given me a system to hang it all on and keep me consistent, which is great. But for example, you wouldn't say to your 6-year-old, here's the washing, go down to the washing machine and put it on. you wouldn't expect that they can open the washing machine, put it in, select the right program, know where the powder goes, etc. And tidying is exactly the same. You need to do it with them to start with. And okay, that's going to take up a bit of your time, but do it in a fun way. Put on some music and say, let's see how much we can tidy up before this song finishes. When my kids were little, we had tidy up time as a game before dinner every evening. So I would get dinner ready. And then just before I put it on the table, I'd shout tidy up time and put a song on. It was the music teacher in me. And we would all, at that time, all their stuff was in the living room, all their toys. So they would all run to the living room and start trying to tidy up as quickly as they could, the right thing in the right bin. And if it doesn't quite right, who cares? As long as I get my living room back for the evening. And then I'd shout, dance. And we'd all stop and dance a bit. And then I'd go tidy up and we'd get back to it. And before you knew it, before the end of the song, the whole place was reset. And my husband would come home from work. I'm starting to sound like some 1950s housewife here. But he would come home from work and I could then enjoy my evening with him. We'd then do the bedtime routine and reading a story, and it was done. It was done.
And you
And
made it fun. You made it fun for them. They
yeah,
probably were like, "Oh, it's a little game, like, we're playing and mom's playing with us," and I bet you they felt such a sense of satisfaction and pride that they were able to do it. You gave them the tools and the systems, as you just told us, to let these little kids do it on their
yeah.
own, and I'll bet that felt good. Isn't that our number one job as parents, to teach them how to go out and do these things on their own and stand on their own 2 feet? And this is a skill that will help them forever in
Absolutely.
everything they
And
do.
and as they get older, you can then start to take a step back a bit. You can go into their room because maybe they're playing in their room now. There's not so much stuff down in the living space. And you can say, okay, we need to tidy up here before we go to bed. What do you want to put away and what can I put away for you? So that you're not leaving them to do it on your own. And yes, it takes 5 to 10 minutes of your day, but it's also time to connect with them because while you're doing that, you can talk about, oh, what happened in school today, or how so and so, or what happened at soccer practice. And it's a way of just spending a little bit of quality time with them, helping them learn a skill. And then as they get a little bit older, you can say, oh, why don't you just put the Barbies away? And I'm just going to go and check on your brother and I'll be back in a minute and see how you're getting on, and leave and let them do a bit more on their own. And then eventually you get to a point where they are self sufficient. That said, if you have a child, as I do, with something like an ADHD diagnosis, you have to understand that things like that are going to be really hard for them, and that you perhaps still need to keep offering that support and that motivation for an awful lot longer than you might do for another child that you have. And this is the other thing, is to really look at each child individually and look at what their needs are. And that's the same for husband-wife relationships or whatever partnership you're in. Just because you do it a certain way and it's easy for you doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get it. You might need to work together to find a solution that works for both of you to keep the home tidied up. So it's like an ongoing process.
So good. It's so important, and I love all of these benefits. I mean, a lot of people probably aren't associating tidying up their house and decluttering with connecting better with their kids and with their spouse and finding more quality time and finding time to have a hobby or go out with a friend. I mean, it really can be life changing. As Marie Kondo's book says, it is life changing and for the
Yeah.
better. And I think as we all make things harder than they have to be, we just do. We live in a world where there's so much. So by simplifying this, and by also adding an element of fun to it, it makes it very doable. And it can be just it just add a huge benefit to our life. And I
Yeah.
think that right now, it's October as we're talking, but this episode will come out in November. And it's a perfect time to do this in your home because, as you said, the charity shops are always looking for things, especially now before the holidays. So if you have a perfectly good toy that your kids have outgrown or they just no longer play with it, now is the time to donate it because it served you for your family for a time, and let it go serve someone else, and keep it out of a landfill and just go donate it somewhere. And it makes your life that much easier as well. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of people, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all these sort of things are just so stressful because not only are you trying to do the cooking, the present buying, and that's a whole nother story, but we could do a whole episode on that. But just imagine everyone coming over and you haven't had to run around like a headless chicken trying to tidy the house up before they came. Imagine if all you had to do was concentrate on the cooking and the rest of it was already done. And this is what, I mean, I have an online course where people work with me on various categories of the KonMari method. It's called Clutter Free Ever After because my husband came up with the name. He was like, yeah, we're helping people find their clutter free ever after. I was like, yes,
I love it.
But this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to the point where when these events happen, it's just easy. And yes, you've got to put the work in. Unfortunately, we're not Mary Poppins. We can't click our fingers and everything tidies itself up. And that would actually not be good because we wouldn't know where anything was. But we have got to put a bit of work in. But like I worked online with the client this morning in Ireland, which is hilarious because here I am in Germany and she's in Ireland. And we spent an hour together going through her laundry room and clearing an area in there, which was just piled high with things that have been put in there for no particular reason. They just needed somewhere. So they put them on the work surface in there. And we spent an hour going through and organizing. And she looked at it at the end and it was like clear. And she was like, oh my goodness, this feels so good. And it is, and it was an hour of her time, but you can break it down even smaller. You can do little 15-minute pockets when you can. And it doesn't have to be daunting. And that's what I love to do with my clients and with the people on my course is make them realize it doesn't have to take over your whole life, decluttering and organizing. It's something that you can fit into your everyday life. Yes, it's going to take you a bit longer to get there, but oh my goodness, having these small wins all the time in your day just really gives you a boost and keeps you going.
So motivating and encouraging. And I think that momentum, once you start, you realize how good it feels and you want to keep going.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part of your house or like just your favorite part of this whole decluttering process in your own life that you feel has made the biggest difference?
I think the thing that has made the biggest difference is everything, and I mean everything, having a place to go back to. And that can only happen when you don't have too much stuff. So the decluttering bit is important. But once that's done, knowing exactly where everything for gift wrapping is, and that there's a pair of scissors there, and there's the sellotape, and I can just wrap a gift, or anyone can. The girls are now old enough that if they're going to something, they wrap their own stuff. They get the stuff out, they put it back when they're finished, and I go to do my gift wrapping and it's all still there. And that is just amazing. That makes such a difference. And the other thing that I love about my house now is my living room. And that used to be the thing that stressed me out so much because I am not someone who wants to live in Instagram perfection, and I don't. We have things lying around and that's reality. But I want, when someone rings the doorbell spontaneously, to, with great ease, invite them in and not be standing there thinking, oh my goodness, I wonder what they're thinking. I don't ever have to do that anymore. And I love our living room, or the kids go up to their rooms in the evening and my husband and I can sit on the sofa and I can light a candle and it looks lovely. And that for me is the biggest change in terms of rooms changing, because my living room used to stress me out so much.
And to have the place where you spend so much time or want to spend so much time be a stressful place, that's not a good way to live. So
No.
it must have been such a game changer for you to have. It probably feels like a whole new house, just using the space differently and better. I feel like my house got bigger, and not that I even need a bigger house. I feel like I need a smaller house now as I go through decluttering and everything. But we were able to get rid of a few pieces of furniture because we just didn't have as much stuff. And it made such a huge difference. It just made, this one hallway, it just easier to walk through and easier to clean. And it just feels more open and airy and it feels good. So,
yeah. And whereas in the past, I love buying fresh flowers, but I never used to do that because why would I bring them home to stand on the coffee table in the living room when it was covered in stuff? But now the only thing on the coffee table is the flowers, and I can walk in the room and enjoy them because I can see them. And I do occasionally treat myself to some flowers. So
As
And
you
the thing
should.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing you were saying about furniture is also very true. I always do a free consultation for people if they're interested in working with me. And I did that last weekend with a lady. And she was like, I need another closet. In Europe, we have wardrobes. So we have like freestanding wardrobes. We don't ever have a walk-in closet. So she's already got 2 freestanding wardrobes. And she's like, I need to get another one. Where would you suggest it goes? And she showed me round and I said, I am never, as a Konmari consultant, going to advise you to buy more furniture, because if you go through the process, you won't need it. And it's like people go out and buy storage bins before they even start. Don't do it. First, do the decluttering, because you probably find, as you've just said, you've got too much storage by the time you've finished, or things fit beautifully in the storage you have. So just hold fire on buying anything until you've been through the process.
It sounds great. It sounds like a dream going through this. So I have a feeling a lot of people will be reaching out to you. I'm going to make sure that I post everything in the show notes today where you can find Caroline. Now, on social media, where can everybody find you?
On social media, I'm mainly on Instagram, and it's caro.thor on Instagram.
All right. Excellent. Caroline, thanks for all the tips today and for your insight on the KonMari method and just on how to do this crazy life a little bit cleaner and more organized, especially with families. Really great stuff. Thanks for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode and have been inspired to slow down and start living life at your own pace. As a brand new podcast, your listener voice matters. If Let's Slow Down is resonating with you, please take a minute to leave a review and rate us. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen and share it with friends. Remember, this is a process, so go easy on yourself. Be gentle and take all the space you need to thrive, because the world needs you to be at your best, to love and serve others and yourself.